So now what we're going to do is we're going to lay out the dimensions for the base cabinets. Then we're going to add appliances and fixtures from the 3D warehouse before eventually adding our wall cabinets. Now before I lay out my guidelines for my base cabinets, I'm going to delete some of these extra guidelines we have from when we made the window. So I'm just going to go to Edit and Delete Guides, and I'm going to lay out my perimeter for my base cabinets. Now with the tape measure tool, we're going to go a distance of 1 foot 11, which is going to allow for a 1-inch overhang for a 2-foot countertop. We'll do that on both sides. We're going to do an L-shaped kitchen. From this edge, we're going to leave 38 inches for our fridge. From this wall, we're going to come in 6 inches, then 36 inches, right? 3-foot cabinet. And we're going to leave room for a 30-inch stove. So again, that was 38 inches for the fridge, 6 inches in, 36 inches for the cabinet, and then a 30-inch opening for the stove. And now we're going to try to make sense of some of these guidelines. What we're going to do is lay out some rectangles for the base cabinets. And before we push-pull this up, we want to connect these two rectangles. So we're going to delete the line that separates them to heal them into one surface. And we're going to push-pull up a height of 34.5 inches. So that leaves us room for 1.5 inches countertop. So now we have the rough dimensions for our base cabinets. I want to go in and add a little bit of a detail here for a toe kick. What we'll do is we'll go up 3.5 inches and in 3 inches. We'll push-pull that away. Now because we have this L-shaped cabinet, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the Follow Me tool to make this toe kick go all the way around. And with our large tool set here, we have the Follow Me tool icon here. And all we need to do is click and drag along our path. Sometimes when we do that, this is one of those times, our original profile gets left behind, but we can kind of just delete that away. And we can see our cabinets are starting to take shape. Now before I go further, because we're not going to be making any kinds of copies of these, I'm going to go ahead and make these one group. You can make them separate groups, but I'm going to make them one group, right? My base cabinets. And now I can go ahead and I can start to put in countertops above them. So I'm just going to trace what I have. And push-pull 1.5 inches. And then I'm going to give it a 1-inch overhang. Oh, I see. So what happened in this case is I actually push-pulled down instead of up. Move that into the correct place. And now just like I did for my base cabinets, I'm going to make my countertops a group as well. And if I thought I was going to make any copies of these and have to make modifications to those copies, I'd make them a component. But in this case, a group will do. So now that we've roughed out the base cabinets, what I want to do is I want to go to the 3D warehouse and bring in some appliances and some fixtures. Now the 3D warehouse we can access by going to File, 3D Warehouse, and we can get models. And here you'll see just a ton of models that have been created by both amateur and professional users, and they're free for us to be able to bring into our model, and we can also contribute to the warehouse ourselves. So the first thing I'm going to want to bring in is our stove. And if I just type in stove, right, it's a search engine, it's going to bring up a lot of results. So over 3,000 different models that match with the word stove. So I think I want to get more specific to have a better chance of getting a model that I'm going to want to use. So instead of just typing in stove, we actually know the dimensions that we've accounted for, right, or allotted 30 inches in this case, right, a 30-inch gas range. So with a more specific search, I get a lot more models that I could use in my kitchen, and I could kind of shop around in here. In this case, I'm going to choose this Whirlpool range. So I can download it and load it directly into my SketchUp model, and it's going to bring it in as a component. So I'll drop it near the location that I want to bring it into, and then I'll allow myself to get more accurate. So I'm going to move it along the edge of those guidelines that we already had created. And then we'll move it along the green axis. To get it on the face of our group, right, in this case, our wall. Okay, so we have a stainless gas range, and now I'm going to bring in the fridge. So to match our stainless steel range, I'm going to type in 36-inch stainless refrigerator. Again, we have a lot of options. I'm just going to choose our first one. I can use these guidelines to help me move it with accuracy. And we don't want our fridge all the way up against the wall, right? You want to leave a little bit of room. So that looks good to me. Now what doesn't really look good to me is that even though I typed in stainless fridge, this really doesn't match our range here. But we can customize these models that we bring into the warehouse, just like we can customize any other component. So I just double clicked to edit this fridge. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the material off of this range and apply it to my fridge. And I'm going to do that with the paint bucket tool. So here in the paint bucket tool, we can choose different colors and different materials, but we can also use the eyedropper here, and we can pull materials off of other entities. So if I just click on this stove, I see I have this corrugated shiny steel texture that they used when they modeled this. And I can click once, right? I can apply that material to the face here, or I can hold shift like we've done in previous modules. I can hold shift and press click, and it's going to turn every like surface the same. So now I have a stainless fridge that matches my range. I like that a little bit better. Okay, so we have our stove, we have our range, now we need a sink. And again, let's Let's get specific. Stainless steel kitchen sink. This first one looks good to me. I'm going to download it right into my model. I'll place it near where I want it to be. Before we get more accurate. So just like with any kitchen, we want to place the stove in line with one of our windows. And in this case, we're going to go with this right window. And let's give it an 1.5 inch setback from the countertop. So now just move this edge to line up with a guideline that we created a moment ago. Now this sink is hard to see. We actually have the same problem that we had before, where even though it's stainless steel, it's not the same material as the other stainless steel entities that we had. So all I did was I just matched that same material that we took from the stove, that we also brought over to the refrigerator, and now I can click out. So I'm no longer editing that sink. Now you probably notice another problem. The other problem is our countertop is going through the sink here. So what we need to do is we need to punch out a hole that will allow us to reveal the rest of the sink. Now, I have a strategy for this that's worked really well for me in the past. What I do is I grab an edge and I make some guidelines. And we're going to use these guidelines to trace out a rectangular hole that we can cut out of our countertop and of our base cabinet. So where I'm placing these is I'm making sure that they go beyond the outside boundary, right, the outside edge of the sink, but not so far in as to be moved to the inside of the sink. So just somewhere in between. Same here. So now that I have these guidelines laid out, I can hide my sink. So just right click and shows hide. And now I'm going to edit the group, right, this countertop, so that I can punch out this hole that we just traced. I can pull that away. So I've done that to the countertop. Now I also need to do that to the base cabinet. So I'm going to edit the group of the base cabinet, use my countertop as a template to trace a second rectangle. And in this case, I'm just going to delete this face away. Right? I just traced it out, selected it, and hit delete. And now when we bring our sink back, by going to edit, unhide, we can now reveal the sink and the insides of the sink. And now in addition to the sink itself, we'd like to get a faucet as well. And you can choose whichever fixtures and appliances you want. But once you get them, make sure you position them and then rotate them in place. Now for something like this that I want to rotate about the blue axis, because we don't have that many flat surfaces, it's actually hard to get this protractor to lock to the blue axis. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find a surface over here that's coplanar with the top plane. And then I'm going to hold shift. So by holding shift, I've locked the protractor in that same position. And now I can bring it over here, click once, pull out a handle, and I can rotate. And I'm going to paint this. And sometimes you have components nested within components, so you might have to double click a few times. So I'm going to paint this to match the rest. And then we'll click off. Okay, so now I have my roughed out base cabinets with the countertop and my 3 major appliances and fixtures.